18. The wrong Commonwealth public servant was placed in a position of power and authority. That position was abused by that public servant. The Australian Public Service has values and a code of conduct that has also been breached by that Commonwealth public servant from the very beginning, which means that the Australian government is responsible for this act of genocide against my people. This act of terrorism, where you have repeatedly, over a number of months, years actually, left a person that should never have been employed in that job overseeing multiple Aboriginal communities and mentoring staff, providing them with incorrect information and neglecting their duties to Aboriginal people of Cape York and Far North Queensland. 19. To the Australian government, you have neglected your duties toward the Aboriginal people of Cape York by not funding a paid disability advocacy support service for the individuals in that part of Australia, where that advocacy service is located in the community or within a close geographic location to the people needing this service. 20. A Commonwealth public servant also attempted multiple times to change the funding style of National Disability Insurance Scheme plans from plan managed to agency managed, including more recent changes that we have seen limiting choice around providers of transport services. This was also done so as to restrict unregistered providers from delivering a much needed service to participants of the National Disability Insurance Scheme in Far North Queensland, Australia, and to ensure that we couldn't access the funding that we, Creative Consulting, had already worked for. 21. A Commonwealth public servant refused to allow plan managers to pay certain invoices as if it was coming out of her own back pocket, which makes me think that it was probably coming out of her own back pocket. So I'd like to know where all this funding has gone. Where has the funding been redirected to while the Commonwealth public servant was making these decisions that directly affected my company and our clients and staff? 22. A Commonwealth public servant approached multiple services to ensure that we did not get paid for the work that we supplied to the government in advance for the Aboriginal people of Cape York and Far North Queensland. The National Disability Insurance Scheme is a scheme that is rife with corruption that has been more often than not directed at unregistered providers of supports and services. However, the information as contained in this letter highlights the corruption in the Australian government's National Disability Insurance Scheme and the direct effect of this corrupt activity on a targeted group of Aboriginal people. 24. Commonwealth public servants delivered their implementation reports via verbal methods, yet required support coordinators to submit written reports. Double standards. The Commonwealth public servant never investigated any initiatives that could work for the people of Far North Queensland and Cape York. There were never any place-based initiatives or even direct commissioning of services that have shown to be sustainable in communities over time. 26. Receiving incorrect information from the Commonwealth public servants in general often resulted in rework due to incorrect information being received from the government, meaning that we couldn't claim twice, which affected the good financial standing of this company. 27. For affecting the economic opportunities available to Aboriginal people in Cape York by affecting our day-to-day operations, via communications with other service providers in the sector to ensure that my company did not get paid in a timely manner or at all. The Commonwealth public servant mentioned throughout this document is responsible for these crimes internally. They have been employed in a senior position within the Australian government public service sector to work with and for Aboriginal people. This person's performance has been anything but just or fair or harmonious for the people. This person has been in that position for at least 5 years and doesn't even know the difference between an Aboriginal person and a Torres Strait Islander. How could they possibly be the right person for the job when at the very minimum they do not know the difference between two very distinct cultures? 29. If the Commonwealth public servant doesn't understand the difference between these two very distinct cultures, how could she possibly have trained and mentored the staff under her supervision as to inform participant plans appropriately and with the cultural safety that we require to engage with government services? 30. The forced assimilation of my company, Creative Consulting Proprietary Limited, into the ways of the Australian government. The National Disability Insurance Scheme is currently in the spotlight due to the Disability Royal Commission into violence, abuse, neglect, and exploitation of First Nations people with disability. The government pressured us to conform/assimilate our service delivery to suit their agenda instead of the persons requiring supports. The Australian government is responsible to the Aboriginal people for who you send to our communities and how they engage with our people. There are so many stories of neglect. I'm seeing the effects of post-traumatic stress disorder within my team, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and I can't let this continue happening. I will not participate in a scheme that is committing genocide against Aboriginal people and my clients here in Cairns and surrounding regions. 31. The psychological trauma that has been inflicted on my team as a direct result of an Australian Commonwealth public servant's attempts to sabotage Creative Consulting and substantially limiting access to funding and to limit the way in which we provide culturally safe, informed, and appropriate services to our people. 32. The Commonwealth public servant also participated in anti-competitive behaviour. We don't have any trust in the government procurement processes. There was a misuse of market power, and there were exclusive dealings happening between the Australian and state governments and other entities. To the Commonwealth of Australia, ignoring the voice of one is ignoring the voices of many. How can you possibly introduce the voice to Parliament when you can't even listen to one voice on the ground? What you do to one, you do to many. What you say to one, you say to many. For those who went before, those who are now, and those who are yet to come. S.O.S. Joanne Horton, Managing Director and Founder of Creative Consulting in Cairns, Far North Queensland, Australia. Thank you. Please make this go viral. Share, share, share. We need to get the word out. To the staff, clients, families, and everyone associated with my company, Creative Consulting, I offer you my sincerest apologies. Until a few days ago, I really had no idea what we were looking at and what we were dealing with. I've spent the last 3 weeks hidden away from the general public, seeking out the Lord and asking for his guidance. This is where he's led me. And I say to my Father in heaven, wherever you lead me, I will follow. And wherever this path takes me, I still say yes.